Hey guys, Enkidu here. So I wanted to show off a character I made for the Metamorph League. It ended up being a Blade Vortex Poison Assassin. So Blade Vortex, in case if you've never used it, I haven't used it in 4 or 5 years, is a spell that you cast, and then you get 10 blades in overlapping areas around your character. And because it's physical, it can do some cool things. For example, poison. Poison does 20% of combined physical and chaos damage of base damage dealt, whichever applied the particular instance of poison. So, we do poison, and then ailments, deadly ailments, unleash to help cast Blade Vortex faster, as well as to keep it up while we're mapping, and then vile toxins. This could very easily be efficacy, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that in a little bit. So, the idea of the character was to use the Obliteration wands. So the top 2 line items of the wands, 26 to 86 physical damage and increased critical strike chance, only affect local weapon attacks. For example, if you were using Kinetic Blast with this weapon. The bottom 2 line items are the only 2 pieces that this build uses on top of the implicit 34% spell damage. Gained 14% of physical damage as extra chaos. When all of our chaos damage is getting calculated, this adds an additional 14% as extra chaos when it's dealing the calculation for the poison. And then, enemies you kill have 20% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Crusader chests are very much in vogue this league, in that you're looking for the mod 3% of their life as physical damage when you kill enemies, they explode. But as you can see, these are not good chess pieces. They're not even linked. That's a 5 link with 14 life and a little bit of crit for 4 exalts. These are insanely expensive. And Obliteration wands are 1 chaos. May even be able to get them for an alch. You could wear 2 of these with this build, have a 40% chance to explode instead of, 3%. But it's going to be doing 50% of the monster's life instead of 3% of the monster's life. I haven't been able to find out if the dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage is scaled by the, for example, chaos damage we have in the tree. But I could tell you right now, it's incredibly, incredibly good as it stands, and it definitely scales with your generic area scaling. Right? 70% right there. 104 on Blade Vortex. So, this was a moderately expensive character for me. It wasn't super expensive, but I spent an X or 2 just getting the hat that had the helm enchant, and then I rolled this with fossils myself, aberrant fossils in specific. Will give you the enemies have negative chaos res, and then on top of that it's just some life. A belly, this is the same belly that I've used on 4 builds this league. A Belly of the Beast, if at the beginning of the league, especially in the first week, if you could spend 3x on a 6-link belly and then outfit every other life character you're going to make with it, I think it's a good investment. I got Curse on Hit Despair Gloves, and then just about everything else is life and resistances except for the Edzeri Step because I wanted to be dodgy and evading, and this helps with that quite a bit. So, some mana regen as well I found to be really nice. This is a temple mod. 5.2 mana per second with increased mana regeneration, some flat mana over there, and then we're able to get some mana regen on the tree right there and right there, for example. With that, I'm able to keep up my stacks of Blade Vortex and then get some mana regen without having to worry about running Clarity. The auras I'm running are Flesh and Stone for some defense, nearby enemies are blinded, Malevolence for skill effect duration and more damage over time, and then just a very small precision because GGG has yet to nerf that, and it's a fair bit of crit, which is just fine with me. Ended up getting to 92, and where I went in my Ascendancy is I went in this order. Noxious Strike, damage over time multiplier for poison, which if you're leveling with poison is fantastic. 40% chance to poison on hit, combined with the poison gem, which is 60% chance to poison on hit, gives you 100. Anything over 100 is redundant unless you are running, there's a map mod in red maps that gives you a 60% chance for monsters to avoid poisons and bleeds, but I'd just suggest to spend 1 chaos and roll over that instead of spending more chaos trying to get above it. 50% increased damage with poison, increased poison duration for each poison you have inflicted recently, and recover a bit of life for each enemy that you're killing. Okay. Poison you inflict with crits deals 50% more damage. If I could invest in more crit, I would for this build, but not too much. 0.4% base crit chance for each poison affecting an enemy, up to 2%. That's okay. When we're dealing single target, it gives us some extra stuff. And then physical is extra chaos against poison enemies, just some more damage. After that, then I got Mistwalker. This is really when the build came together. This is when Blade Vortex and Poison started to feel good, when I was still on a 4-link or 5-link and I was still leveling. This is when it was like, okay, this is fine. As soon as you get Mistwalker, you can speed through leveling. I think I hit 90 in less than 20 hours, which I don't know if it's a record for me, but it's certainly very quick. I didn't really twink out my character too much. I just put on whatever I had in my stash. I didn't even think I leveled with a tabby, and it was still very good. And then the last but not least, this does a little bit for you while you're clearing. Increased movement speed if you've killed recently. Damage from your crits can't be reflected. We don't care about that. 20% more damage while there is at most one rare or unique. When you're bossing, you get more damage. It's fine. So, for our skill links, we have Spell Totem, Multiple Totem, and Wither. If you're doing chaos damage of basically any variety, a Wither Totem is always a good idea. The skill reads as: cast a debilitating debuff on enemies in an area, hindering their movement and also inflicting Withered, which increases chaos damage they take, and it stacks up to 15 times. Throw out a couple totems, and you hit this, and you can go boss and have a nice time. So, because we're a damage over time character, it is often that we are just running around a monster like this. Every once in a while we'll flame dash and go back through. So what I wanted to do was increase my DPS and have another little active skill. So I ended up using Plague Bearer, which is really, really cool. I had never used this. I got a corrupted level 21. And it basically, as you go along and map, if I kill one pack, I have 1,000,000 Plague Bearer damage, because I have it linked with Empower and increased area of effect that I could just pop, and for the next 10 seconds, it's going to be doing 100,000 a second to everything around me, which also scales with my area. I have Stone Golem, Flesh and Stone, Malevolence over here, Immortal Call Cast and damage take increased duration, because whatever, Arcane Surge, Faster Cast, and Flame Dash. One of the cooler things that I set up that I really like is on the other side of this character, on Weapon Swap, we have 2 Cold Iron points, which is something like a 20% damage increase for Blade Vortex and for Poison. And I even mapped my skills so that everything but Wither Totem is still there for when I swap it. Everything is still exactly where I want it, which was pretty fun to do. I enjoyed that quite a bit. So before we get too much further, I wanted to take you guys through a map and show you what we're doing here. So let's go just slap an eco on, and I'll show you guys a 216. So 83, 91, 34, 22 should be fine. And you can see when the elusive kicks in, it starts doing quite a bit. And you're largely able to just run through and map like this. And it ends up being a very fast, very good character. I was even surprised at just what it could do. Every now and again, if you encounter a tough target, hit up Plague Bearer, or if you want, you could just have Plague Bearer up even most of the time that you're playing, because you get it back. And this is what I was talking about for Plague Bearer. So it just starts slowly degenerating stuff, and that's even without Blade Vortex active there. And as you can tell, I take chunky hits, but that's the idea of the evasion, is that I don't take all the chunky hits, just a few now and again. If you see somebody tough, hit your Plague Bearer. I don't enjoy those little ghost guys that seem to just run around and turn invisible and literally invulnerable on top of it. There you go. Breach would be a good example. Or Abyss, rather. Wither, 3, 4, 5. Perkwell's Toe. Even if you're getting just a little bit of wither off, that's still alright. And as you can see, it's still a moderately tough character. You're able to take some nice hits, which this league in particular, in that they buffed a lot of monster life and damage, it's more brutal and less forgiving than a lot of other leagues have been, and probably so far as any league has been, if we're being truthful. Alright, so let's get through this map. And watch out for the spinning chaos dervishes that spawn behind you. There's a fair rhythm that you can get into with playing what I think is a very fast character. You're able to stay ahead of a lot of things that would otherwise give you trouble. For example, those spinning purple chaos clouds that spawn in this map and do quite a bit of damage to you depending on the map mods. All in all, I actually think Metamorph is a pretty cool league. I have yet to have even really a decent drop, but this is an example of the single target. Once Wither and everything else gets up, it's pretty chunky. Not bad, right? And then I'll drop a portal and show you guys the Metamorph. Throw down your Wither, 3, 4, 5 if you got it. Watch out for all that poison. And you see when the ads explode on him, it does a lot more, right? So that's pretty smooth for a pretty juiced up T16 Metamorph. And you take some hits. That's what this league sort of is. It's not like I'm wearing a big cushy shield with a lot of block chance, but it ends up being a really nice character. So I'll include some clips at the end. I had done a 3-way splinter fight, and I had done some other maps, and I was able to get to 92 in a very good and fast way. I would suggest this build, unless they drastically change poison, for the next league, for starter. 2 obliteration ones in your area of effect on kill is just bonkers. And I do expect GGG to release some new skills, buff player life, buff player damage, because last league all they did was nerf player life and nerf player damage by buffing monster life and monster damage. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Check out the clips at the end, and I'll see you later. Thanks.